Hello there, and then welcome to a brand new video. This is How Beyond Numbers, where we learn maths the easy way. Now, in this video, you're looking at inverse proportion. In our previous one, we looked at the direct proportion, and I do hope that you did understand. When we talk of inverse proportion, two quantities are inversely proportional. That is, if one increases while the other decreases at the same time. So a typical scenario here is looking at let me say if you are driving a car, right? Your initial liter of fuel you have in the car is very, very high, right? But as your distance, the distance you have traveled increases, the liter reduces, you see. So as the distance you have traveled increases, the liter you have in the tank, the fuel tank, also decreases. That is inverse proportionality, you see. That is inverse proportionality. And mathematically, if we want to write inverse proportionality, we write it this way. So if you have two quantities, let's say y and x, and you want to show that these two quantities are inversely proportional, then you say y, you bring up proportionality symbol, then we say 1 over x. It is important you take note of how different this is with respect to the direct proportionality. For the direct proportionality, we said y is directly proportional to x, you see. But for the inverse, that is y is proportional to 1 over x, you see. Then as we said earlier on, after bringing your proportional symbol, if you want to change it into an equal to sign, then that is going to be a y is equal to k times 1 over x. If you simplify that, it is just k over x, right? So this here is how we write our inverse proportionality. With that understood, let's see how we apply this formula. Okay, so our first question here says, if 4 workers complete a job in 10 days, how long would 5 workers take? Before you would be able to understand or know what type of proportion it is, you need to understand the scenario. You see, so you have a number of people completing a job in 10 days. That is 4 of them. Now, what if you have that same job and then this time around it is not 4 people, but then 5 people? So it means they've gotten one extra help. Hence, the number of days is going to reduce. You see, so with this, as the number of workers increase, the number of days decreases. You see, so if I'm going to let number of workers be n and number of days be d, there's an inverse proportionality. So it is going to be something like this. So the number of days is inversely proportional. Number of days is inversely proportional to number of what? Workers. You see. Then now we would want to change it into what? An equal to symbol. So we say n is equal to k over d. Right? As simple as that. So our question says 4 workers completed the job in 10 days. 4 completed. So the number of workers for our first set of parameters was what? 4. And then the number of days was what? 10. We then do our substitution to look for our k. You see, so we do our substitution to look for our k. Hence, we have 4 is equal to k over what? 10. Making k the subject, all we need to do is to multiply both sides by 10. And by so doing, this here cancels this. You see, so 4 times 10 gives us a 40. So our k is equal to what? 40. Now, this simply implies that this here equation is then going to be n is equal to k, which is 40, over d, that is k over d over here, right? So with this formula set, we can now look forward. We can now proceed to solve the question. And it says, how long will it take 5 workers? How long is it going to take 5 workers? So for this now, we know our n is what? Number of workers is 5. Is the days we do not know. So we just make the D the subject, right? And how do we do that? You can simply substitute and then do that. So we have 5, that is for the N over here, is equal to 40 over D. And making your D the subject, you can choose to multiply both sides by D, where this here cancels this. Then you have 5D is equal to 40. You still don't have your D, so you divide both sides by 5. You see? So this here cancels this. And our D is simply equal to 40 over 5. 40 over 5 gives us an 8, right? And that simply implies that, looking at the question, it says, how long would 5 workers take? So it implies that 5 workers are going to take 8 days. And that is a reduction in the number of what? Days. Now, for this same question, we want to what? Employ another method to solve, just as we did for the direct. All right. So you can compare the two methods and then try to master the one you think suits you. But better still, it is best you need to understand both. It says if 4 workers complete a job in 10 days, you see, so we have 4 workers completing in what? 10 days. How long will it take 5 workers? You see, so this method is very simple. Now, all we need to ask ourselves is, if 4 workers are using 10, will 5 workers need more days or less days? They are going to need less number of days, you see. So what we say is, if less, more divide. You see, if less, among these two numbers, which one is more? 5 and 4. Which one is more? It's 5 is more. So so the 5 is going to do the division, whilst the other one remains a numerator. That is if less, more divide. Then times our 10 times the other quantity you have over here. Simplifying, we know 5 divides 10 twice, and 2 times 4 gives us what? 8. Very, very simple. You see, and we end up getting the same word answer here. Then you conclude, therefore, it will take 8 days for 5 workers to complete the job. I know you would say this formula is very simple, but as I said earlier on in the direct, sometimes you'd be asked to look for the constant here, the constant of proportionality, this over here. So if you would want to stick to this formula, fine, you can use it anywhere. But in situations where you are being asked, what is the constant of proportionality? Then if you had forgotten the previous method, you would find yourself wanting. Okay, so with that said, let's solve this other question. Okay, so this second question says, a tap fills a tank in 6 hours, right? And how long will it take 2 taps? So you are filling a big tank and then you just use 1 tap to fill it in 6 hours. Realize that if you have more taps, then it's just going to fill it very fast. You see, for this one, let's use the short method, and then if we finish, we'll use the other one to see if we are going to get to the same answer. So I'm going to say 6 hours. So first of all, it says a tap, right? So 1 tap is to 6 hours. So we write the 6 hours here. Then it now says 2 taps. How many hours is it going to use? Is it going to use more or less? You see, it is definitely going to use less. So if less, then more divide, right? So this here is going to do the division. This one here is more than this. So this is doing our division. Then the other number becomes our numerator times 6. 2 divides 6 3 times. 3 times 1 gives us what? A 3. Right? So we just need 3 hours. So therefore, it will take 3 hours for 2 taps to fill the tank. You see? That was very simple. Now, what if we actually want to use the constant of proportion or the inverse proportion method? So we say the number of taps, I'll just say let n be the number of taps. So the number of taps n is inversely proportional to what? The hours it takes to fill it, right? Because as the number of tap increases, the number of hours reduces. You see, that is an inverse proportionality there. And well, this is supposed to be a k. So, well, actually, before we put our k, then we need to put our equal to sign. So n is equal to k over what? H. Now look at the first set of parameters we had, right? And better still, if your change of subject works, you can just at this stage make k the subject. So multiplying both sides by h, you realize that you are going to get your k to be equal to nh, right? So our k, then using our first set of parameters, we had what? 2 hours and then a tap, that is 1. So 1 times 6. Hence our k is equal to 6. You have to take note that the k has no unit. It is just a constant, right? So if k is 6, then we refer back to this equation here. So our number of taps is equal to what? 6 over h. You see? Then we come back to the second set of parameters. They said how long? We are looking for the hours. Will it take 2 taps? Our n is equal to 2, right? So we do that substitution and we say that what? N, which is 2, is equal to 6 over the number of hours. All we are left to do is to what? Make h the subject, right? So making a the subject, we have 2 times h is equal to 6 over h times h. This here cancels this. We have 2h is equal to 6. Making our h the subject, you are going to divide both sides by 2. And we say our h is equal to 3. And as you can see, that is no different from the answer we got when we use the other method. You see, 3 hours. So that is that for inverse proportion. Okay, so based on what we've done, here are some 5 questions you can just try on your own to test your understanding. And I would ask that you use both methods. So you are presenting 10 solutions. 5 with the very straight, simple method. And then the other one, you'd solve and then let me know what the constant of proportionality is. And use your constant of proportionality to get the equation and also get the answer to the question as well. All the best. And I do hope this video helps in your studies. Bye.